Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming tonight. Thanks. So my name is Patrick White. I am the founder, co-owner, and operator of Conspiracy Culture Bookstore. We are one of the hosts for the evening, and we've been in business since 2006. What we do is put an emphasis and a focus on material that is typically obscured or missing from the mainstream. And the majority of our products can definitely not be found in the Heather Reisman Bilderberg controlled chapters in Indigo bookstores. And it's great to have everybody out tonight because the sense of community is definitely important, and anytime we have an opportunity to get together like this and show solidarity and have an opportunity to express and share these ideas and exchange information, it's really good. And I commend you for coming out. You're such a distinguished audience. Also, we've got an email list that you can sign up for in the lobby. We've got some interesting events coming out between now and the end of the year. Just today, I booked the flight for Alex Jones's first Canadian appearance, which will be taking place on August 22nd. So he'll be coming. Well, yeah, that was a Bilderberg meeting. It wasn't like he was doing a Q&A and a talk. He was being thrown in jail, but so it was a bit different. So yeah, and then we've got some interesting things. I'm a bit nervous, so I'm kind of rambling. That's pretty much it. Check us out, conspiracyculture.com. I'd also like to introduce our co-host for the evening, Suzanne Marr from Bye Bye Blue Sky, who's been a real help putting this all together. She'll come up and say a few words, and then we'll get right into the program. Don't forget, in the lobby, Elana's books are for sale. They're only $20 flat on special tonight. A great opportunity for everybody to get some additional information, and it really helps everything sort of chug along. Thanks for your attention. Suzanne Marr, everybody, from Bye Bye Blue Sky.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. I am a geoengineering activist, and I hope you all enjoy this special presentation. Thank you and welcome. Geoengineering is the manipulation of Earth's climatic systems via aerosol spraying and electromagnetic pulsing. Our beautiful azure blue sky, that is our birthright, is no longer. Our sky and our weather is now owned and controlled on a mere whim by the military-industrial complex for profit and control. You may be unfamiliar with this subject. It is a covert yet hiding in plain sight operation. This will be an eye-opening evening for many. On occasion, we may pick up a book that is so riveting we're almost at a loss for words. The content of such a book is so eye-opening, so unfathomable, and changes the way one can perceive their whole world view. Elana Freeland's Chemtrails, Harp, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth is just such a book. After I read this provocative and groundbreaking book, I felt a compulsion I must try and share this information with other people. I was inspired to reach out to Patrick and Kadina of Conspiracy Culture to get Elana to bring this information to Toronto. I was aware of their terrific event planning and their tireless efforts to expose the darker underbelly of our society. My activism to create awareness about weather warfare has come in many forms. A Facebook wall, Bye Bye Blue Sky, a soon-to-be website, print campaigns, farmers markets, group meetings, poetry readings, subway campaigns. Interestingly, my subway campaign in Toronto garnered a lot of attention. Advertising Standards Canada felt it was breaking advertising code for accuracy, clarity, fear-mongering, and superstition, and was forcibly removed. I sent Advertising Canada 2 tickets this evening, so if you're in the audience, thanks for coming out. Would love to speak to you after the presentation. Hosting Elana in Toronto is a pleasure and an honor. Over the years, Elana has been a Rudolf Steiner School pioneer, teacher, lecturer, storyteller, and writer. She has written for alternative publications, edited the stories of survivors of MK Ultra abuse, and is still ghostwriting books on diverse topics. During her undergraduate days, she studied biology. In 1996, she was awarded a Master of Arts in Great Books and honors for her thesis in history at St. John's College in Santa Fe, New Mexico. In June of 2014, Feral House Books released Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. This is an incredibly detailed and well-researched book with over 600 footnotes. Elana leaves no stone unturned with her exacting, razor-sharp theories and assessments about the world we now live in, yet so few understand. Recently, the Australian magazine Nexus published her article on invasive electromagnetic weapons. Elana is also the author of a fictional American history series called Sub Rosa America, about the deep politics behind the downfall of the United States since JFK's assassination. Elana now currently lives in Olympia, Washington, where she's now begun the sequel to Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. This book is about the next phase of the chemtrails ionospheric heater technology, the space fence. This is a world smart grid enabled by the ionized atmosphere we now breathe. Does the rabbit hole get deeper? You bet it does, folks. The serpentine agenda being implemented for humanity by unseen forces is unfolding as we speak here this evening. Locked into the space fence, Elana will be describing to us how humanity is to be neurologically herded into a transhumanist future. Elana will sift through all the questions and confusions about what is happening with our weather, our world, the disaster capitalists who benefit from it all, and our own very existence. Also, please note, there will be a global march against chemtrails and geoengineering next Saturday, April 25th, from 2 to 6 p.m. at Kew Gardens in the Beaches. We encourage as many people as possible to come out for this peaceful assembly and let the lawmakers know that we are not okay with this. There will be informational flyers you can pick up after Elana's presentation regarding this event. There will be a Q&A after her presentation, as well as a book signing. And I encourage you to support Elana and her work and to pick up a book that could literally change your life. It did for me. A book that infused me with such passion to inform people of the naked, unvarnished reality of our world and a world we now live in. So, without further ado, please put your hands together for a brave luminary of truth, Elana Freeland.
Okay. How is it for note-taking? Should I turn it up a little bit? You think? Yeah.
That's low, that's medium, and that's high. So low is kind of high for me. Are you guys okay with the dark?
Some no, some yes. Let's start out, and then we can always change it.
Right.
I want to thank everyone who's here. You are the courageous cutting edge, going against the consensus reality being sold in the corporate media. It is not an easy task, I understand. And yet, the truth is worth more than gold. And I want to share with you how far I have come in finding that truth tonight. While preparing this talk, I read that 46% of American adults interviewed in major cities have no idea who Edward Snowden is. I don't know how it is here in Eastern Canada, but in the United States, people are inundated by media, virtually drowning in a media environment that has superseded the natural environment. And yet, they seem to know and remember so little. Fewer Americans than ever are reading more than sound bites, and all major media are owned by 6 giant corporations, whose CEOs, publishers, and editors view the role of media in our technocracy to be that of a drug delivery system, not of truth-telling. Thus, it should be no surprise that burning issues such as the one I am presenting tonight and activists such as myself are marginalized as conspiracy nuts. And scientists stepping forward to sound the alarm are immediately discredited, ostracized, and even killed. The number of Western scientists who have died strange deaths or disappeared over the past 2 decades is extraordinary. Because research is often controlled by the military-industrial intelligence complex, grant monies that fund it, scientists' work is often compartmentalized under need-to-know clearances and confidentiality agreements. These scientists may indeed be aware of much that will be discussed tonight, but they may be afraid to speak out. I cannot judge them, but I do know that the current system of scientism, controlled by government and corporate grant monies, and good old boy peer review, must be thrown off if we are all to survive our technologies. The internet may be imperfect with its soundbite, commentary, mis- and disinformation, and outright surveillance. But it was invaluable to me while writing Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, given that I was putting together a story about the national security state that controls our mainstream media, including publishers. I did not have the luxury of libraries filled with reputable books. I had to hunt and peck my way through thousands of articles and accounts, including dozens of scientific and military papers and patents. What was missing was the context by which to interpret how they all fit together. Like the Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris, Osiris' body parts lay scattered here and there for the rare individual trained in how to piece it all together to see what it exposed. Destiny had a role to play too. I became good friends with Clifford Carnicom, the independent scientist who had spent years collecting and analyzing the fibers falling from the persistent contrails over northern New Mexico. Clifford had once been a research scientist for the Department of Defense, the Bureau of Land Management, and the U.S. Forest Service, until realizing that science was being increasingly controlled for political and military agendas instead of serving humanity. As I listened to him lay out his discovery of the cross-domain bacteria, otherwise known as Morgellons, in the fibers dropping from the sky after particularly heavy spraying operations, my undergraduate biology background was resurrected. As he examined my saliva and blood, I peered through his microscope at genetically engineered critters, sucking the iron out of my red blood cells and distorting their round shape. The aerosols were not just distributing chemicals. They were delivering biological and genetically engineered organisms whose nanoscale size guaranteed that all living organisms were breathing and ingesting them. Tonight, I will take you through what became the Chemtrails HAARP Technology Meat and Potatoes book, on sale outside, plus the discovery process I am now engaged in for the next book on what the military calls the space fence. Now and then, I will reference some of the extraordinary researchers I have encountered since your own Richard Syrett interviewed me on Coast to Coast radio a year ago. I apologize in advance for my amateur attempt at a PowerPoint presentation. I'm a writer. All right, so we begin. Let's begin with the present media debate over geoengineering, climate change, and global warming. Is it really as simple as this 2-minute YouTube portrays it? I'm going to try to make it a little bigger. Come on. No? See what I mean?
Hello there, and welcome to What the F Is That? I'm your host, Geo, and today we're going to try to help you better understand what the F is climate engineering. Climate engineering, otherwise known as geoengineering, is defined as the deliberate and large-scale intervention in the Earth's climatic system with the aim of reducing global warming. Climate engineering has two categories of technologies: carbon dioxide removal and solar radiation management. Now that we have a little better understanding of what climate engineering is, let's go into the different technologies being used and some real-world examples of their side effects. Carbon dioxide removal methods refer to a number of technologies which reduce the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Among such technologies are bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, biochar, direct air capture, ocean fertilization, and enhanced weathering. Bioenergy with carbon capture and storage is basically to bury it underground and hope for the best. It is pretty much the same thing we do with all the garbage and radioactive waste we produce. Ocean fertilization is basically to take a bunch of iron, urea, or phosphorus and dump it into the ocean. Another possible objective of ocean fertilization is to produce more sulfate aerosol in the atmosphere, and so increase the amount of sunlight being reflected by clouds, cooling the Earth. At least, that's the theory. The second technology is solar radiation management. Solar radiation management seeks to reflect the sunlight and thus reduce global warming. Proposed examples include the creation of stratospheric sulfate aerosols, basically particulate matter that floats in the upper atmosphere, blocking the sun's rays. In the next episode, we'll discuss some of the side effects of these ongoing projects. If you like this information, be sure to let us know by subscribing and hitting like. Thanks!
The truth is that geoengineering is about geopolitics and looks more like this: the new global warfare, as portrayed by the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Warfare is no longer something taking place far away with big armies on the move. Now, thanks to the electromagnetic era that has crept up on us, the battle space is everywhere, and the line between combatant and non-combatant, that's us, has been erased. So you see here, there's the airplanes, and then we have the ships, and here you have a very innocuously named headquarters that is in touch with communications satellite, and here in touch with a Predator unmanned aerial vehicle. And then over here, we have another UAV, yet another UAV. And down here, this is the part I want you to pay attention to. We have these ionospheric heaters. That's basically what they look like: phased array installations. And so now this is our world. And this is what I'm going to show in a variety of ways tonight, so you understand it, is my hope. With the expansion of military battle space and the redefinition of warfare as asymmetric, with non-lethal electromagnetic weapons, it should come as no surprise that the military outlook on non-combatant populations should change as well. In this oft-quoted public law, we find the gaping loophole through which broad experimentation with chemical and biological agents on civilian populations has been driven. The place to pay attention to here, this is it. Any purpose that is directly related to protection against toxic chemicals or biological weapons and agents, these are the exceptions. Any peaceful purpose that is related to a medical, therapeutic, pharmaceutical, agricultural, industrial, or research activity. These are the exceptions to what is prohibited. HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, was research. But was it for peaceful purposes? And chemtrails were part of it, despite the suffering of citizens, the breathing in of conductive metals and polymers, the soaring increase of respiratory ailments and asthma, the alkalinizing of the soil, the acidifying of the oceans, the endless obscuring of the sun. And yet the media catechism was that trails filled with chemicals, chemtrails, don't exist. We are looking at normal water condensation, contrails that just happen to last for hours, while transforming into what has now been consecrated with its own Latin name, Cirrus contralis. The military has lusted after weather control since long before the European wars. Indeed, weather has defeated many a battle strategy. Even the atomic bomb on July 16, 1945 at White Sands Missile Range had to be postponed several hours due to weather. From Project Storm Fury, also known as Project Cirrus, to Operation Popeye in Vietnam, the U.S. military has diligently pursued cloud seeding and chemical cauldrons in which to mix rain, wind, and drought for warfare purposes. Chapter 1 of Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth surveys the extensive experiments that finally led up to the present covert chemtrails radio frequency programs that all NATO nations are suffering under. Before introducing HAARP, the infamous phased array installation in Gakona, Alaska, that inspired the first book in 1995, Angels Don't Play This HAARP, by Nick Begich and Gene Manning, let's take a look at the very first HAARP, the High Altitude Research Project at McGill University in Montreal, funded by the U.S. Army and the Canadian government. This first HAARP was headed by Toronto's brilliant arms inventor, Gerald Bull, who entered Toronto University at 16 and at 22 was the youngest PhD in Canada. When chosen to head up the High Altitude Research Project, Bull was already engaged in developing rockets for the early Star Wars system, dubbed in 1983 as the Strategic Defense Initiative, under what I call the Reagan Troika. President Ronald Reagan, Vice President George H.W. Bush, and Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney. Gerald Bull wanted to launch satellites into the upper atmosphere, not by rocket, but by a 16-inch sectioned supergun, a term coined by science fiction writer Jules Verne. After announcing his withdrawal from the HAARP program and starting his own corporation, Gerald Bull was killed in Brussels on March 22, 1990. The following year, Frontline News, in its special on Bull entitled "The Man Who Made the Supergun," referred to his death as a state execution. Bull's harp supergun led eventually to this railgun, now aboard the joint high-speed vessel USS Millinocket at Naval Base San Diego. This weapon slings small metal projectiles at more than 3,000 miles per hour by means of sequential electromagnets. The railgun is purportedly destined for a base on the moon, where atmosphere and gravity will help it achieve velocities near the speed of electrons with near zero loss of recoil. Here is a cross-section of the Van Allen belts that protect our planet from solar winds, radiation, etc. Only recently has it been admitted that in the 1950s and 1960s, one thermonuclear test after another was detonated in the Van Allen belts under operations Fishbowl and Dominic, Yucca, Teak, Orange, Argus, etc. These tests trapped high-energy electrons and formed new radiation belts. But they also disabled satellites in low Earth orbit. For more dubious tests during the Cold War, see Chapter 1 in the book. The Reagan Troika went public with the Star Wars program in 1983. By the way, the nickname Star Wars came from the film series that was released between 1977 and 1983 as predictive programming for the era to follow. In 1989, the very first year of former director of the CIA, George H.W. Bush's presidency, the Berlin Wall fell, announcing the end of the Cold War. The following year, the term chemtrails shows up on the cover of the U.S. Air Force Academy chemistry lab book. Who could have guessed that soon chemicals would be flooding the skies with artificial cirrus clouds, and the term chemtrails would be wielded to marginalize and trivialize those awake enough to realize that they were not looking at jet condensation trails. The term chemtrails also shows up in the executive summary of the HARP program. The executive summary can be found in the cutting-edge document Air Force 2025, which also includes the better-known weather as a force multiplier, owning the weather in 2025. Within a chemtrails context, the executive summary clearly states HARP's reliance on extremely low frequency, or ELF, waves, as does Dr. Bernard J. Eastland's 1987 HARP patent, which I deconstruct in Chapter 2 of the book. Reliance on ELF waves leads directly to a reliance on conductive nanoparticulates in the lower atmosphere, or as the military likes to call it, chaff. To repeat, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Project is like the first HARP project, a continuation of the Star Wars SDI system. From the late 90s to the summer of 2012, the unparalleled ionospheric heater up in the Arctic Circle was experimenting with the ionosphere, the magnetosphere, and our own troposphere. HARP is a phased array with 180 antenna units organized in 15 columns by 12 rows, yielding a maximum gain of 31 decibels. Originally, it was jointly managed by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, and Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, in conjunction with the Geophysical Institute at the University of Alaska. Its patents have changed hands several times, but were originally owned by the infamous Raytheon Corporation, the fourth largest U.S. military contractor after Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman. HARP was not the only phased array antenna farm. Here are a few more that were active at the time. In the book, I list 50 or so installations utilizing radio frequency and microwave technology for planetary military agendas. Today, what the HARP research program discovered has been converted into a digital web of instruments that span the globe and comprise the terrestrial and atmospheric components of what is known as the space fence. So here we have the high-power auroral stimulation, HIPAS, up in Alaska. In Puerto Rico, we have the Arecibo Observatory. The observatory in this, oh, look at that. That made it larger, good. Now I have a new technique. And then finally, the Jicamarca Radio Observatory down in South America. And the other one shows the International Radio Observatory, HISCAT, in, it looks to me like Norway, along with ISCAT, the European Incoherent Scatter Scientific Association. ISCAT preceded HARP, but HARP had more power, as I'll explain in a moment. Then the National MST Radar Facility, Sura over in Russia, Jindali Operational Radar in Australia, etc. Okay. Let's just review. Maybe we haven't done this since science in high school, some of us. Let's look at this for a moment. Most of the things I want to point out are, I want to show you where the troposphere is. That's us. Little teeny weeny little troposphere there. Now fully ionized. This goes from 0 to 20 kilometers. Then we have the stratosphere, which goes from 20 to 50 kilometers. The mesosphere from 50 to 80 kilometers. The thermosphere from 80 to 690 kilometers. And then everything above that is called the exosphere. But the ionosphere itself, which is not shown in this lovely chart from the book, goes from the top of the mesosphere to the top of the thermosphere, to give you an idea of the ionosphere. And the magnetosphere, which is the outer layer of the ionosphere, goes all the way up to 60,000 kilometers. In 2012, oh, and then the other thing I wanted to show is, this is not entirely accurate. Here's our visible and IR, okay, infrared. And then you have UV, and finally X-rays over here. I wish I had a whole chart because it's very dramatic to see how little our visual range is in the electromagnetic spectrum. Very, very narrow, and it makes us very vulnerable to this technology. Can you see that? Okay. In 2010, mainstream media reported that scientists were, quote, baffled, unquote, by the collapse of our thermosphere 56 miles above the Earth's surface. And then, in turn, they were relieved when it seemed to, quote, rebound, unquote. NASA and the Naval Research Lab called it a space-age record. Well, I'd like to be a fly on the wall to find out what experiment had completely collapsed our thermosphere. Here I have, HAARP, ionospheric heater propagation. Okay, this is how HAARP works. HAARP was unique in that its transmitter power appeared to be only 3.6 megawatts, that's millions, and yet it actually had an effective radiated power, an ERP, that could be multiplied to billions of watts. That's gigawatts. Wikipedia, which I don't trust, but anyway, here we go. Wikipedia said, quote, a total of 3.6 megawatts of transmitter power will feed it, but the power is focused in the upward direction by the geometry of the large phased array antennas, which allow the antennas to work together in controlling the direction. And that was another plus of not only could it produce billions of watts, but HAARP also had the ability to steer those billions of watts. HAARP's final 3.6 megawatt transmitter power completed status in the summer of 2007, yielding an effective radiated power of 5.1 gigawatts, or 97.1 decibel watts at maximum output. Okay, that's the end of Wikipedia. Now this is me. Instead of transmitting these waves from ground-based transmitters, HAARP created these waves through the use of pulsed transmissions of high-frequency energy beams. To put it another way, HAARP duplicated the ELF signals by turning their signal on and off at rates within the ELF range, which is from 30 to 3,000 cycles per second. The result was that ELF radiation could be directed to a specific area on the surface of the planet at will. This makes it a weapon. Dr. Robert O. Becker, in his 1980 book, Cross Currents, The Perils of Electropollution, The Promise of Electromedicine, says the following: cyclotron resonance enables very low-strength electromagnetic fields acting in concert with the Earth's geomagnetic field. Let me give you a picture of that. To produce major biological effects by concentrating the energy in the applied field upon specific particles, such as the biologically important ions of sodium, calcium, potassium, and lithium. By virtue of cyclotron resonance, and that's what you're seeing here, this is a picture of what we have millions and billions of. We have these magnetic lines of force. They're all coming down. They're very close together. And what HAARP is able to do is it zaps the ionosphere, and all those freed electrons begin to spiral like a fireman's fire pole down these magnetic lines of force. And this is what we're breathing. This is what I mean by an ionized atmosphere. This is not being done on the scale of HAARP at this time, but it is being done by other ionospheric heaters. All right?
What does it do to us?
Well, as Dr. Becker said, one thing, it enables very low electromagnetic fields acting in concert with the Earth's magnetic field that the bees follow, that the birds follow, the magnetic field, to produce major biological effects by concentrating the energy in the applied field upon specified particles, such as the biologically important ions of sodium, calcium, potassium, and lithium. In other words, what it does to us is with the proper frequency, all our organs have a certain frequency. As the parts of our brain has different frequencies. All of our emotions have frequencies. With the proper frequency, and these electrons, freed electrons, ions, coming down and impregnating the air in an electrical way, these impact our physical body. And as they tweak the frequencies in this technology, which they have been doing, then different parts of us, different populations, different geographic areas, different species of animals will go through certain changes. Up to now, it has all been experimental, is what I say. That's not what everyone says. Some think it's population eugenics. I don't. I think we're much more valuable as guinea pigs and petri dish experimentation.
What changes will it bring about?
Well, it'll affect your potassium levels. All the ions that you have in small quantities that can send you into mental illness, can send you into cancer. This is a very fine, natural system that is now being externally manipulated and experimented with. Okay. This one I did. Thanks for letting me just go slow here, so I have to concentrate. So this is regarding global warming, particularly of the Arctic Circle, high-frequency heating of the ionosphere. And all I need to do here is read to you what this says. I'm going to see it all. This is one of the many papers that you can find in open source on the internet. Again, the challenge is, what is the context? And now I'm giving you the context. This is about what was found from HAARP. So let's see what it says in this first paragraph. Extremely low frequency, very low frequency radio waves are difficult to generate with conventional antennas. Ionospheric high-frequency heating facilities generate ELF-VLF waves via modulated heating of the lower atmosphere. That's us. High-frequency heating of the ionosphere changes the lower ionospheric conductivity, which, in the presence of natural currents, such as the auroral electrojet, creates an antenna in the sky when heating is modulated at ELF-VLF frequencies. We present a summary of nearly 100 days of ELF-VLF wave generation experiments at the 3.6 megawatts high-frequency active auroral research program facility near Gakona at a variety of ELF-VLF frequencies, seasons, and times of day. We present comprehensive statistics of generated ELF-VLF magnetic fields observed at a nearby site in the 500 to 3500 hertz band, etc. So all the time that people have been arguing what HAARP is doing up there, it's all in papers on the net, I assure you. Everything is there, but what was lacking for us was the context. Now here's the magnetosphere. I just want you to try to, I mean, a lot of this, we're talking space age, right? We're talking the cosmos. We're talking that the upper atmosphere is being manipulated for the sake of control in the lower atmosphere. So we're going to have to learn to visualize. These concepts are not easy, but they're not impossible either. And so this picture is pretty good. What you see here is the interaction between the geomagnetic field of the Earth and the magnetosphere. Another way of looking at it is the next one. This one I really like because this is by a man named Bruce Cathy. Has anyone here read Bruce Cathy? He's an Australian. He's a New Zealander. Sorry if any Australians are here. I apologize. New Zealanders too. He's a New Zealander. He just recently died. Great man, great mathematician. Simple man. He was a pilot in New Zealand who kept getting stories from pilots about UFOs. So being the open-minded scientific type that he was, he didn't disbelieve because he was seeing things while he was piloting north and south in New Zealand. And he ended up writing 4 books. And now he has gridded the entire Earth. And you can go to that at the http://www.worldgrid.net. And you can purchase that software. You can find anything on Earth that is intersecting with the magnetosphere and the world magnetic grid. So now let's make a connection to something we all know about, I assume. The mass animal die-offs that are happening. What is going on? Well, in chemtrails, in the book, I write, Earth's atmosphere, upper and lower, is to be transmuted into a fully ionized plasma by means of heat, in particular electron-cyclotron resonance that I read from Dr. Becker. What effect will such experimentation with frequencies and pulses for the sake of deriving weapon power from the ionosphere have on the Schumann resonance of all of life? Is it any wonder that the birds and the bees of the air and the fish and mammals of the sea are dying in droves? This is a tremendous cost. All right. The creation of plasma clouds, is going on right now in our fully ionized atmosphere. Remember, not just Mother Nature can create clouds. Compare these 3 artificially created clouds. The first one is produced by a fog machine by the Dutch artist Bernard Smilde. Probably slaughtered that in Dutch. Then the second one, which I'll play now, I don't think it has to be bigger, is produced by NASA's TMC-65 weather modification cloud machine in Mississippi.
This is the shuttle.
And then the third example is this. Let's see if we can read some of this. Okay, what you're seeing in that chart of 6, you can read it. Yeah, it's large enough for you to read it. This is the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory from the Plasma Physics Division working at HAARP up in Gakona, successfully produced a sustained high-density plasma cloud in Earth's upper atmosphere. They announced this, I believe it, 2013. Well, shoot, they've been doing it for years. But apparently it was time to trot it out for public accolades. Previous artificial plasma density clouds have lifetimes of only 10 minutes or less, said Paul Bernhardt, NRL, Space Use and Plasma Section. This higher density plasma ball, plasma orb would be another word for it, was sustained over 1 hour by the HAARP transmissions and was extinguished only after termination of the HAARP radio beam. So the difference between this and what we're seeing up here, where the chemtrails laid by the jet then slowly over the next hour or more dissipates into a cirrus cloud cover. The difference between that and this is that they had a radio beam, that's radio frequency, targeting that particular plasma cloud for that long. And that's how long they say. And of course they say it, so I'm immediately wondering if it's true, but I can believe that. Our atmosphere is now a cloud chamber, and the clouds above our head are, for the most part, anthropogenic, made by human beings. 10 years ago, mainstream media commented upon, quote, peculiar snowy white streaks, unquote. But now meteorologists on primetime weather shows fumble to avoid mentioning these same streaks and what satellite weather maps are actually viewing. So something has happened in the last 10 years where there's more hiding going on in the media. This picture is, let's see if I can get it over here so you can see it there. Clifford Carnicom in 2000 wrote this about this cloud. He was still examining the clouds at that point. He's moved on now to, he's isolated the DNA of the cross-domain bacteria and is busy writing papers about what he's finding. But at that time, he was still making those connections between the chemtrails and what he was finding in the fibers. And he was breaking into the fiber that held deep in itself, under 5 layers, the cross-domain bacteria. Okay, so here's what Clifford wrote under Synthetic Clouds Revealed. The material of the clouds is shown to have density, form, and behavior unbecoming of water vapor. And it has all the appearances of being, at least in part, of a synthetic nature. This material and form of cloud has been observed on numerous occasions in Santa Fe, New Mexico during the past year and a half of the spraying program, and has always been suspect because of the unusual textures observed. The patterns and textures referred to have frequently been described as cottage cheese or tortoise shell. In nature, by some observers, a classical assumption would be altocumulus. Okay, so let's just look at a few clouds here. This is Cirrus contralis. We might as well use their term. We used chemtrails, why not? And let me go back to that. So here you have that feathery, this is relatively new, that feathery look. I don't think that was happening 5 years ago. So my assumption, and it's only an assumption, is that the chemical mix is different. And the atmosphere is different. This is a different time than it was 5 years ago. So that's possible. Okay, here's another one, another cirrus. In this case, you see it from horizon to horizon. Again, I ask you to note, you see where it's darkened? That looks like some of the moisture has been retained from perhaps a normal cloud. Much of the weather that we're seeing, certainly I in the Pacific Northwest am seeing, is straight out of what is called the Pineapple Express. The U.S. Navy is producing weather engineering out in the South Pacific, and it is collecting the moisture and driving it east and north. Of course, bypassing California, because the drought in California, now into its 4th year, is intentional and must be experimental, along with there must be some fat cats making a lot of money off of the fact that California is almost out of water. So there are various experiments going on, including economic and political, not just biological, not just chemical. Here we have a horizon to horizon, and it is dissipating out. But sometimes you'll see it's centered, and sometimes it's just crisscross, right? Various styles of clouds. Here's yet another style. This is an interesting one. This was in 2001 when I think it says here, an American bomber left a contrail over the Tora Bora region of Afghanistan. I think sometimes the patterns are giving a message. Another message that I would say is a message is one of these. X marks the spot. What it really means, I can't say that I know, but it looks to me like a marker. And from an aerial perspective, it certainly would be a marker. Okay. Then here's a real beauty. Some people are so enamored of these clouds they don't know. This was in Nelson, BC, last November. And it is quite stunning. But see those layers? Those are layers. And is there any natural cloud in there? Perhaps. There is some, perhaps. It's really hard to say, because one of the facts that a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of this voodoo and magic, chemical alchemy going on in the skies cannot really be done unless there's some part of the weather that is natural. There's got to be a weather system coming in. There's got to be something going on with the jet stream. And then the magic can go on. So it isn't as though they're creating the weather out of nothing. Here, what I said was, let's see. From what we can tell, this photo first appeared on the internet in 1999, and the U.S. Department of Defense intel analysts have been busy trying to remove or recontextualize it. A now-dead NASA link claimed that the C-130 formation photo was taken during tests on vortices behind aircrafts. It clearly shows some kind of man-made chemical trails being distributed. Okay. Is this a patch that a spray and pray team chemtrail pilot can earn? I don't know, but I pulled it from a book of patches that the military likes. Finally, we come to this really fun little video regarding the delivery system. So I'm going to see if I can make it bigger. I'm getting better at this. Okay, and let me see if I can read this before. The daily delivery system is costly and requires thorough planning and organization. Chemicals must be processed at plants of chemical giants like Dow, DuPont, and Monsanto, then hauled to small and large airports by tankers to either be added to the JP-8 fuel or loaded into specially fitted canisters on military and commercial jets. The pilots or drone operators must be sworn to confidentiality. media outlets censored, air traffic control told to not expect any type of identification from those jets, etc. It's a lot. There's a lot of things that have to be silenced and put in motion. You might rightfully be asking, how could such a large operation be kept secret for so long? I hope that you read in the book for the answers to that. This drone, disguised as a Delta airliner, exposes the extent of the subterfuge that these people might go to. So let's see it.
Okay, let's see if we can get this thing to work the first time. This is pretty much the smoking gun here, folks. The spy drone planes disguised as Delta airliners. One guy said that that was what I had videotaped before was an MD-88, I believe. Well, these things are made to look like Delta airliners. Let me blow this picture up for you. You see here, this out at the Kingman Airport. Let me see if I can get it to work. And they paint on the windows, they paint on the doors. It's not even a really good paint job. It's like an amateur painter came in and painted on the windows, the two doors, even the front windshield. It's not a windshield. The numbers are there. You remember when I said on the original video that there's something not quite right with the turbo fans? Well, look at that. Okay, what else? Okay, the back. Look at that. Look how they hardly kept a straight line when they did the back wing for the Delta plane. And just say, I'm going to show you another video clip here in just a second. It shows there's a whole fleet of these, and I saw a whole series of them flying. So they must have came right out of the airport, and then took a turn to the west. They were going towards California. Okay, just a little bit more. I'll do some close-ups here. Gosh, it's not even they just didn't do a very good paint job, but from a distance, you know, it's quite convincing.
From a distance, convincing.
The Delta logo.
Right?
So it's straight. Okay, here's another picture of another of one of these. Pull it up, see the number's different. Paint job just as bad. It's a little different.
Okay, you get the point, huh? How about that? All right, finally now, 34. Here, after more than a decade of operation, the HARP-Gakona research project ended. Of course, many are still suspicious of yet another government lie. Billy Hayes, one of my advisors for the next book, is known as the HARP man. He worked on the construction of HARP-Gakona and 250 other such radar installations around the world for a nameless three-letter agency and its multitude of corporate contractors. He has described this May 14, 2014 meeting of the Senate Appropriations Subcommittee as a snow job. Here, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Science, Technology, and Engineering, David Walker, admits that, quote, HARP was really designed to inject energy into the ionosphere in order to control it.
In exploring a potential relationship with the University of Alaska to perhaps take over the HARP.
Thank you, Senator. The Air Force has gotten great value out of HARP in the past. We took over from the Navy and managed it and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there and have finished our work that we were interested in doing up there. We've moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere, be able to actually control it.
Bingo. Okay, everybody got that? Then Billy says of this, after he said it was a snow job, Senator Lisa Murkowski says the right things. Admiral Klunder says the right things. Certainly, HARP-Gakona had been shut down, as had the original space fence, but only temporarily so. Each is being upgraded, retooled, and taken deeper black. In June 2014, Raytheon and Lockheed were awarded contracts to upgrade the new space fence systems with digital high-frequency HARP technologies to the tune of $879 million. All right. So that, I want to put that out there because I don't want to answer that question anymore. Isn't it HARP? Isn't it HARP? It's not HARP now. And I'm going to show you what has taken its place, some of what has taken its place. A very huge global system has taken its place now that the research is over. A veritable avalanche of technologies and profitable business ventures is now booming from what was learned during the decade plus of HARP experimentation. And now it is all about to be given the imprimatur by the UN Climate Conference in Paris this coming December. And here I have the banner at the site. This is a huge moment. This is when it will be legalized and when all the nations will sign on the dotted line to start paying their carbon taxes to pay for the next geoengineering phase that we've already been under for 15 years. And this is from the site also. In 2015, France will be hosting and presiding the 21st century, 21st, I was like, oh yeah, Agenda 21, the 21st session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP21, CMP 11, otherwise known as Paris 2015, from November 30 to December 11, 2015. COP21 will be a crucial conference as it needs to achieve a new international agreement on climate applicable to all countries with the aim of keeping global warming below 2 degrees centigrade. France will therefore be playing a leading international role to ensure that points of view converge and to facilitate the search for consensus by the United Nations, as well as within the European Union, which has a major role in climate negotiations. Sylvain Henry succinctly clarifies the issues at hand at his website, Mass Action Demand. Cirrus clouds are the thermostats of the climate, and countries of the world are fighting to control that thermostat. Who regulates the thermostat will be decided in Paris in 2015. Even the Pope will be there. Despite the fact that global warming has been ramped into high gear by chemtrails ionospheric heater technology for over 15 years now, the people and nations of the world are to be blamed and taxed for the carbon cover story. Perhaps those very carbon tax profits will not only line the pockets of the wealthy, but also pay for the continued ionizing of our atmosphere for global geopolitical agendas. Weather modification is another great moneymaker now that chemtrails ionospheric heater technology can create droughts. Artificial atmospheric ionization is a lucrative rainmaking technology. Here is a 2005 paper from the 16th Conference on Planned and Inadvertent Weather Modification that explains how the charged nanoparticles being delivered in chemtrails can be used to modify the weather, just as galactic and coronal rays have done for eons. So now anthropogenic weather modification will be taking over the role of the galactic and coronal rays, is their idea. I'm not going to read this. I just wanted you to see how far-flung their objectives are. Torus Molecular Cloud, TMC 65, Acquiesce, Weather Modification Specialists. Business is booming. Many, many weather modification corporations. Here is some Atlant ionizing rain enhancement technology in Oman, designed to, quote, enhance the coalescence process, unquote, of condensation by generating negative ions, quote, charged particles, that create rain clouds by means of high voltage electricity. All that is needed in our now battery-ready atmosphere is an incoming weather system, quote, convective storm, for rainfall enhancement and multiple weather stations pulsing radio frequency, like the NEXRADs that we have in this country. Sydney multimillionaire Matt Hanbury, nephew of Rupert Murdoch, owns Atlant. David Miles, CEO of Acquiesce, likes to sound sanctimonious when he says, by cultivating 2 oceanic sources of gentle soaking rain, we have drawn the oceanic rains across the Arabian Sea to the Horn of Africa, notably to dry areas of Sudan and Ethiopia, to help combat the famine. So admirable. He doesn't mention that the wealth flowing from drought-ridden nations into his pockets comes from a technology that exploits drought as a political and economic weapon. Okay. One phase of the chemtrails ionospheric heater technology is revealed in this clip sent in by Lindy Tucker of a high-resolution satellite loop over a Nebraska supercell storm on May 11, 2014. Watch for the 2 stationary gravity frequency waves held in place, and when they finally come together from 2 directions. Let's see if I can get this right. There's some amazing people that have come to my Facebook site who are doing this kind of weather reporting. So what you're looking for is, let me get my, you see the chemtrails. You see this is frequency here. All these striations, that's radio frequency. Okay, in comes, now they meet, overlapping, and then what did I say to look at next? Note the even serrations indicating the presence of an electromagnetic pulse traveling along a certain ELF resonant frequency. Okay, let's look at it again. And she says, watch the 2 stationary gravity waves held in place finally come together from 2 different directions. Right here. All right. Speaking of another storm, this one took place in Atlanta, Georgia on June 6, 2014. And what I say about this one is that this storm-making technology can be made to appear absolutely natural and is a challenge for accurate observation. In June 2014, a mesoscale convective system, otherwise known as a thunderstorm, composed of multiple cells of wind, hail, tornadoes with a convective available potential energy, called CAPE, of 4,000, cut a swath across northeast Kansas, northeast Oklahoma, southern Missouri, and northern Arkansas on its way to western Tennessee. Immediately after the storm departed Atlanta at sunset, this sign and wonder was left in its wake. Interestingly enough, the Washington Post referred to the storm as savage and beastly. Pay attention to those adjectives. Looks like it's being mythologized.
Unbelievable. I've never seen a rainbow like this before. The entire freaking sky. Like 2 of them. Unbelievable. One side to the other.
So maybe
Whoa!
that was electrical. And you'll see those bursts that are from electrical storms, not necessarily made by nature. All right, then in this one, let's take a closer look at the extremely low frequency or ELF waves that play so heavily into ionospheric heater technology, especially in its tomographic or earth penetration function that can spell earthquakes, yet another aspect of the economic and political agendas behind weather modification. Okay, here's another video. I'm going to make it bigger.
Dr. Agnew experienced the power of ELF waves firsthand back in the 1980s. He was hired by an energy company to locate oil and gas using the same kind of ELF waves at much lower frequencies to carry out his search. It's a process called earth tomography. But during one particular incident, Dr. Agnew believes his use of HAARP-like ELF waves accidentally triggered an earthquake.
It was in the spring of 1987 we arrived in Roseburg, Oregon to use our ELF technology to search for oil and gas. Setting up that day, we had a little bit different results than we expected because the instant that we energized it, there was between a 4 and 4.5 on the Richter scale earthquake that occurred. We were so amazed about what seemed to be cause and effect. We get to an area that has a high propensity for earthquakes in an area known as the megathrust of the Pacific Northwest. We turn it on and the earthquake occurs.
Dr. Agnew demonstrates how he may have triggered the quake.
This is a scale model of what the area looked like in Oregon when we scanned for oil and gas in 1987. The strata right here represents the megathrust area underneath the ground. The rock represents the potential energy set up in the ground from a tectonic stress. What we're going to do is introduce ELF waves and demonstrate that it can in fact trigger an earthquake.
In this case, Dr. Agnew is using a stereo speaker to produce the ELF waves needed for his demonstration.
ELF waves, extremely low frequency waves, are just like a subwoofer. In your car, you can actually feel the vibrations through your body. ELF waves are the same way. They vibrate the earth, and at right resonant frequencies, they can have devastating effects.
When the speaker is activated, ELF waves begin to emit. Tiny vibrations in the sand are detected. Then a few seconds later, the rock representing a fault line shifts.
As you can see, in a very few seconds, the resonant frequency built up in our model released the potential energy in the rock. That concussion, on a real scale, would have been felt for 100 miles. These conditions are already set up in the ground. All it takes is the activation energy to make the release happen. This is a small scale, and we're only using 30 watts in this scale.
When HAARP's broadcast array in Gakona, Alaska sends pulses of ELF waves into the ionosphere, the waves get reflected back down and pass through the earth and ocean. If 3.6 million watts of ELF waves were purposely or accidentally aimed at an already unstable fault line, it could, according to Dr. Agnew, cause a tremendous earthquake.
Looking at just simple instabilities, what does it take to create an avalanche? A guy walking across an unstable ice field. What does it take to trigger an earthquake? The right signal coming in when the pressures are already built up and they're at their threshold, that feather, and in our case that hammer, releases that energy.
All right, now let's take a look at Japan. All right, here's Japan. I never noticed how much it looks like a dragon, doesn't it? It's tremendously like a dragon. Okay, move this down, find my words. Okay. We all remember the terrible earthquake that unleashed Fukushima radiation. Even now, that radioactive plume is making its way over North America. On May 18, 2011, the magazine Live Science proclaimed, quote, Japan earthquake was in the air days before scientists' claims, end of quote. In the paper, Generation of Seismic-Related DC, Direct Current Electric Fields and Lithosphere, Atmosphere, Ionosphere Coupling, that appeared 2 years after Fukushima, the role of charged particles during the Japan earthquake on March 11, 2011 is explained. So you see those waves up there, that's radio frequency. HAARP was activated a full 3 days before the earthquake in Japan. This paper reviews modeling of the influence of earthquake preparation processes on the ionosphere through the electric field and electric current occurring in the global atmosphere ionosphere electric circuit. Our consideration is based on the satellite and ground-based experimental data of electric fields, plasma and electromagnetic perturbations observed for several days before an earthquake. We have ruled out the models which are not consistent with the experimental data on the electric fields in the ionosphere and also on the ground surface. There has then been proposed a new model of the generation of electric field on the basis of injection of charged aerosols into the atmosphere. And we discuss the mechanism of lithosphere-atmosphere ionosphere coupling. It is then shown that such changes in the electric field within the ionosphere induce a variety of plasma and electromagnetic phenomena associated with an impending earthquake. So the coupling that it's talking about is definitely something that the aerosols loaded with conductive metals and HAARP could pull off. And it is, in the book, I explain why I'm quite certain that's what happened. By HAARP. Yes, it was. And there are political situations going on in Japan at that time that I talk about in the book that are worth reading. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here, a case study. I've been suspicious of suspicious observers, but I have given that up now. I appreciate his efforts. He's very professional, and if you've seen him, you know what I mean. I'm going to play one of his. He does weather reports all the time, but it's cosmic weather. He's really great on the CMEs, solar flares, etc.
Good morning, folks.
Oops, sorry.
We are in the last few days before an expected uptick in activity from earthquakes to solar flares. Thus far, we've had only one M flare. The X-ray flux appears to show another ramp upwards towards a possible second one today. But even still, the sunspot number is dropping on the departing spots. Southern groups still maintain a gamma classification. Central vorticity is gone in the big leading umbra there. We also have some new spots coming in. One of the prime things we're watching as that uptick time approaches is the coronal hole down south. That bulge is of extreme force and will surge the earthquake aspect of the watch as it turns in. The solar wind over the last 3 days shows a rise in speed and plasma temperature, with density dropping off in the process. That's a coronal hole stream, and our shield is beginning to see some instability. We took a 5.8 last night to continue the Carlsberg Ridge swarm. This was the largest of the bunch so far. The quake of the day, however, was in the Philippines, actually rang much higher than 6.3 when you look at multiple readers. But the more interesting aspect is that this is yet another Earth spot quake. Weather is going bonkers even before the big storm arrives. And channel veterans know the two most active Earth spot trigger zones for seismicity are Mexico and the Philippines. There you go. We're within the beginning stages of that planetary geometry. Let me turn off the atmosphere and bring us to noon here on Stellarium. Over the next few days, there's Mercury coming in to conjoin the Sun, and you can't see it, but Ceres is right there too. Moving to today's featured links, during a November Fly on the Wall episode, we said that aerosol spraying in the sky was going to be thrust into the limelight soon. NASA is nudging that along here, still claiming these are regular contrails, but as the topic gains traction, the massive body of work online will be found by anyone looking into the topic. We've also got a great article on exoplanet research linked from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, looking for super-Earths. We're at the U.S. West Coast where a massive storm sits just offshore but already draws its convergence over the land there. That's a major flow to the drought zone. Back east, we see a high-pressure node at the Great Lakes reinforcing the convergence drawn way south from a northern low off-screen here. You can see the cloud line following it. And once again, we have watches from coast to coast. Eyes open in your area. In Europe, the Mediterranean lows remain, but we've got a bigger one.
I'm going to stop there. We just are going to have ours. Notice that he's looking at the cosmic events that precede the earthquake possibilities. Again, it's that weather needs to be present for the technology to develop and turn in a different direction. Expand it, contract it, but it needs to be there on its own. So that's the value to me of suspicious observers. He gives you that big planetary picture. Now we can go to the case study. Being very patient, thank you. All right, now I'm just going to put together some events, and these are from Billy Hayes, the harp man. This is how he sees it, and given that he's crawled up hundreds of those towers and now has grand mal seizures on a regular basis because of the radiation he has endured for his entire life, I tend to believe him when he puts things together. So let's see how we do. All right, first of all, he dies. He has a death of heart failure in Kansas, exactly at the moment that a pinwheel harp ring explodes into activity in central Mexico.
October 28, 2012, harp ring, southern New Mexico. Look at that. It's like a Mandela. I've never seen anything like that. Oh, what do you think? Let me know.
Oh, it's over now. But how do you do it? Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, put it all up, that's great. All right, step 2. As soon as that happens, moments later in Chile, a magnitude 8.2 is struck. Okay, then 3. In Western Canada, a magnitude 7.7 strikes the Queen Charlotte Islands region. And 4, the following day, October 29, Superstorm Sandy occurs. These were the days in 2012 of tremendous weather experiments going on all over the place. It was very hard to keep track of and to follow the harp rings, as they were called then, happening on some of the satellite footage that was coming up. But then there was a harp site then that you could follow everything on, and then suddenly it was shut down because it was realized that people were actually tracking these events by following the harp rings. So that ended in 2012. Let's see if I said anything about that. No. One fellow wrote from the Queen Charlotte Islands. He said that he was on Talel on the east coast of Haida Gwaii. He kept getting a feeling of vertigo, even the swaying sensation. It had been shaking almost constantly for about the last 1/2 hour. At this point, because at times winged chariot, I would like to present my 7 operations, just so you know, those who might not buy the book. These 7 operations are the following. I've been talking a lot about the weather environmental modification, so you know what that one is. And environmental modification, as far as that one goes, that includes planetary geophysical operations, but I'll discuss that when I get there. Then you have the electromagnetic operations, many things, many experiments going on, all the way from refueling in space to mind control, targeting individuals. Then you have the asymmetric warfare operations, in a way dovetailing with the electromagnetic because of the non-lethal weapons. Biological operations, that would be primarily Morgellons, but not just. I already mentioned how the frequency and pulses are affecting some of our ions in our bodies. Planetary geophysical operations, it's important to know that big oil is in on this. The fracking is in on it. And if I get to it, I'll clarify that. Some places appear to be being, I'll borrow the term, terraformed, such as the earthquake, the hurricane that happened with Katrina down in New Orleans. The entire New Orleans harbor, which is an international harbor, I remind you, has been redone. The 30-some thousand poor people that lived in that area are gone, and real estate is booming. So the same thing happened with Sandy at the Port of New York and Port of New Jersey. I don't know how many thousands of people were taken from their homes during that catastrophe, and will never return to them. And the real estate deals went booming there as well. And the harbors will no doubt be done. Again, that was an international harbor. So say it again. Yes, it was. That is my opinion, and I cover it in the book. You can follow my reasoning there. Then you have intelligence surveillance operations. We know all about that. We know how these satellites can see a postage stamp. The cell towers, all of those, I cover them later if I get to it. They are all involved in this, and they are all part of what will be called the space fence. The only reason the space fence was discontinued, along with HARP, is they had to be retooled according to digital technology. They're operating at different frequencies. The space fence also at that time, they did not have the system here, terrestrial, that they needed for an entire space fence. And that was changed greatly, I feel, by the 1996 Telecommunications Act under Clinton, which does not give communities the right to say where the cell towers should be put, or even if they should be put there. And the cell towers and, those cell phones that you love, I personally don't own one. That is all part of setting up a wireless system for the terrestrial space fence part. And then finally, we have the last one, detection and obscuration of exotic propulsion systems. Yes, that could include UFOs. I'm not sure they're from Alpha Centauri, but I am sure that we probably have our own. And certainly there can be other dimensions that in our tiny electromagnetic spectrum, visible, what we can see there's much more going on. And it is possible that these clouds, this cirrus cloud cover, is part of a detection and obscuration program. Okay, so I got that in. Let's plow onward. How are you doing? Are you okay out there? Great. All right. Okay, now I'm going to I'm not going to cover Morgellons in this lecture, but if there are people who want to talk to me after about it, I would be happy to talk with you. I had to make decisions about how to show you how big this picture is that we are confronted by as we move very quietly into the space age. Not much fanfare like the days of Kennedy for those who are older, when it was, oh, wonderful, we're going to the moon. It's going to be fabulous. I love the space age. I want to be in the space age. This one is creeping up on us in a very quiet manner because of some of the agendas that the military-industrial intelligence complex is committed to. So here I have, just to give you an idea, we're just going to look at some technology. Even though the lead HARP site is down now for modification, there are now literally thousands of affiliated and associative sites that are part of the system being maintained and active with digital HARP technology. Links and communications under the new Space Fence bridges under contract with Raytheon, and main system contract with Lockheed for nearly a $1 billion upgrade. This will all be in the next book. The Space Fence was originally in outer space only, but now that the atmosphere is being ionized and all electronics have digital, it can include the lower troposphere, while what has been learned from HARP, the huge sky heater, also known as the solid-state phased array radar system, is multiplied into a C4, remember that's command, control, communications, and cyber warfare, into a C4 global system anchored by huge NexRad towers, strategically placed sky heaters stretch for miles. Such facilities keep European NATO nations under a sustained cloud deck for months on end under the ultimate control of the Royal Air Force and the BAE. That's for Europe. All right, 52. The upgrading of the International Space Station is part of NASA's ambitious C4 system to encompass land and sea, air and space. Fleets of satellites, airborne and ground-based sensors are the silent partners of high-tech geoengineering. Here you see some of the upgrading in the form of CATS. It's the Cloud Aerosol Transport System. A Doppler wind LiDAR, and LiDAR means light detection and imaging, and image ranging, remote sensing instrument. So that's CATS right there, that little piece. Got all kinds of stuff going on here. I didn't research those yet. Here you see them, okay. The ISS orbit passes over and along many of the primary aerosol transport paths in the atmosphere. That's chemtrails. I'll read it again. The primary aerosol transport paths. So that's another clue as to why they go in certain directions. This demonstration and science experiment, DSX, is a fundamental science research mission advancing technologies that enable medium Earth orbit spaceflight. I'm not going to go into that. We'll speed ahead here. Just to give you an idea. Okay. All of this sophisticated sensor equipment is coming under the rubric of space weather forecasting. Papers galore are available in open source, despite media spin that geoengineering is only something the experts are thinking they might have to do. Mark my words, as soon as the UN gives geoengineering the stamp of approval, just like the Patriot Act in 2001, long-winded, well-formulated documentation will appear overnight. HARP's new agenda, a wind tunnel mitigation system for the Van Allen radiation belts. Van Allen radiation belts are a problem because they're still taking out satellites. The electrons are getting trapped there from all this activity from the ionosphere. And so they're desperately trying to find some sort of instruments that can mitigate that. So here I have the space radiation environment presents a significant impediment to both human and robotic exploration and development of space. The Earth's magnetic field traps high-energy charged particles generated by cosmic rays, solar storms, and other processes forming the Van Allen belts. The high fluxes of energetic particles in the radiation belts will rapidly damage electronic and biological systems in these regions unless extraordinary and expensive measures are taken to harden or shield against these particles. Even with hardening measures, the lifetime and reliability of space systems is often limited by the steady degradation caused by very energetic particles. In that, note two things. Note the heated region and the injected waves. This to me is the way that, this is us, the red guys, and this is coming in from the cosmos. So we are heating with ionospheric heaters, and we are injecting waves by having the radio frequencies zap the trails of conductive metals. That's how we do it. Okay. Is this good? I don't think it's good. I think, and that's a good question, because they say that they're mitigating, they're mitigating what they already did to the ionosphere. The ionosphere has big holes blown in it. The magnetosphere is unstable. The poles are shifting, but at a slow rate, yeah, but that happens naturally as well. So how are we to read these signs? Well, the military appears to be taking it very seriously because many of the instruments that they're coming up with, that they're announcing to the public this year, are all mitigating. Looks to me like mitigating the damage already done. In fact, the cirrus cloud cover argument that it's an albedo effect, that they're actually coating us with artificial clouds in order to reflect back into the cosmos the warming that we're undergoing. Well, unfortunately, there's just big holes in that too, because according to William Cotton, whom I quote him on radio shows all the time, William Cotton says, he's a cloud physicist, he says that the worst thing you can do to mitigate global warming is to lay a cirrus cloud cover over the Earth, because the cirrus clouds will act as an incubator and really promulgate global warming. So we know that's false. It's patently false that this is an albedo effect. There is another agenda going on.
It's actually filed in the patent that it's done for global warming.
To produce global warming. Then there's the methane release. This is another fallout of the ocean's warming. We're concerned about the methane eruption from the ocean floor. And Project Lucy is coming to the aid of that. And here we have a really good picture of what interferometry looks like. Two rays crossing each other. Oh, thanks. Okay, thanks. So again, this is a mitigating effort with the Project Lucy. Now I'll quickly just go through, these are some HARP instruments. Here's the sea-based X-band radar. We have sensors everywhere. They're laid out across the land, usually like fences. They look like fences. Here's an X-rad. Here's a NextRad in Asia, just to show that they're all over the place. Here's NextRads in the United States, across the United States. NextRad stands for Next Generation Radar, by the way, sorry. Here's the ground wave emergency network, the Gwen towers from the 80s that have been retooled. Here's the Gwen towers across the United States, approximately every 220 miles. Here's the cell towers that help you call your friends and family. Here's the disguised cell towers as pine trees, cacti, and church steeples. Here's the wind farms that are being pulsed to produce wind tunnels that serve to work with fracking, believe it or not. The fracking and the wind and these devices work together. And I'm sorry, I can't go into detail, but I will in the next book. Here we have fiber optic cable under the sea. If you're wondering what's happening with the whales, just think of Navy sonar experiments and fiber optics. Here is a hydroacoustic data. I want to read what I have on this, and then I'm supposed to be quiet at 9 o'clock so you can ask questions. That's fine with me. I'm going at a tremendous pace here. The top graphic is from Rev. Michelle Hopkins, December 27, 2012, YouTube, entitled HARP Massive TTAs Discovered on Secret Island and Seafloor Causing 2 Earthquakes. The smaller graphic is from the U.S. Air Force Technical Applications Center of the Ascension Island Hydroacoustic Data System, otherwise known as HIDAS. The hydroacoustic data acquisition system is comprised of underwater sensor systems linked to shore activities with undersea data transmission cables and shore-based computers for data storage and transmission to a variety of places around the world picking up that data. So we have that there, and you can see that in that top one, this torpedo-looking thing, that is a ray going out. That is radio frequency going up here. And what actually Rev. Michelle talks about is how it affected the weather systems rolling in to Europe at that time. So these are all over the place. This one is a diamond shape and it's underwater. Most of them are terrestrial, or else in space. Let me see what else, just to make sure I'm not passing up something absolutely essential. No. Jim Creek Naval Station, yet another one, Super Darn. Remember the Virginia Tech shooting? Here's Super Darn. This is what they look like. These are the fence light. This is a gravity wave. We talked about the ground waves or gravity waves. This is a scalar wave. Why it showed up in the sky, which is very fortuitous, somebody caught it. Usually it's traveling underground or in the sea, is probably because it's following trails laid by chemtrails loaded with particulates. That would be my guess. That's only a guess. Burns Air Force Station, space fence. Wollonga, South Australia, space fence. And Japan, Misawa, Japan, space fence. Acidification, fracking of water, soil moisture. We're seeing various unidentified exotic propulsion systems. Here's the Aurora. It's been sighted behind cloud cover. Here's another one. I don't know what it is. Here's another one, Pegasus. I have not seen this one. And here is an elliptical something or other docking at the ISS, the International Space Station. I have no idea what that is. Here it looks like UFO fleet, and it goes nuts on the web, but I think my preference is Occam's razor, which is, don't throw out the simplicity until you're sure it doesn't work anymore. And here Christopher Fontenot, one of my advisors, says, phased array radar can create this anomaly and suspend it, just as sound levitates droplets of water. So I don't think it's UFOs. This, I don't know. I have some thoughts. Here's something quite interesting. You may have seen it, you may not. Let's just look at it, and then I'll have to phase out. This is about the holographic capability of HAARP and probably other ionospheric heaters working together in an interferometry way.
It looks like your average city skyline, but in fact, these images are just an elaborate optical illusion. The amazing mirage appeared over Huangshan City in East China at dusk on Thursday. Following a heavy downpour, the spectacular images of mountains, buildings and trees appeared in the thin mist above the Shinan River. The phenomenon began at about 5 p.m. local time, to the amazement of passers-by.
I know, it's really good, so you can find it on the net. But holographic, what are we going to see? Are we going to see an alien assault in the sky? Going to see some godlike being arrive to save us? Here's directed energy weapons and what they can do to the human body. That was Joni Mitchell has Morgellons, as you know. Here's a Morgellons strands. They tend to have red, blue, and black heads, all of which indicate they have different functions. They have a sensor function, they have a microprocessor function, and they have a reproductive function. So I heard that, is she out of the hospital? Did anybody hear? Here is a particle accelerator. Pretty tiny. It can be even tinier and then broadcast into the sky and we all inhale it. Then we had the mind control, climate mafia, space mirrors, etc. Geoengineering is responsible for. Here's what you can do to recover from my talk. On Saturday, people from around the world will be protesting geoengineering. Join your voice with those. Read the book. Don't be daunted by the footnotes. Join reputable Facebook and blog sites dedicated to keeping people apprised of analysis and breaking news. Turn off the television and read. Learn to discern information from disinformation. Think. Invite people to your home to study and discuss. Research, heal yourself of cognitive dissonance and helplessness. We battle for a human and humane future. Not cyborgs, not transhumanism. Generations to come depend upon us, on our wakefulness, while forces arrayed against us seek to keep us asleep or depressed. There's the Global March. And there's me. The only person in my whole town that waved a sign last year. And my friend Tani came up and joined me so I wouldn't be totally alone. That's it. We can have questions and answers and then. Diet. That's what I'm doing. I don't think it's that simple, but I've followed a particular diet for 45 years now, and I haven't been to a doctor since I was 13, I think. It works well. I keep my blood alkaline, not entirely alkaline, but balanced in that way. Acidity, the Morgellons, the cross-domain bacteria, which I have in me, and my guess is you're in a NATO country, so you have it in you. It thrives on acidity. And as far as my potassium levels, etc., I eat whole foods. I eat only organic, except when I go out for a delicious meal with friends now and then. I eat whole grains. I don't eat much bread. I'm just giving you an idea. I'm not saying it's the only diet in town, but diet is very powerful. I'm living proof of it. Everything works. Nothing hurts yet. I'm still walking and talking, obviously. So that's the best I can do. Yeah. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Well, let me do her first because she was. Thanks.
So there's so many things that I'd like to ask you, but I'm going to just try to stick to one. I've only just recently come to understand some of the modern mind-control technology that's out there, and I was wondering if
Oh, yes. There's a Nexus magazine. I wrote the entire article on electromagnetic targeting weapons. And there, you can see a copy of Nexus out there. I left it out for people to see. It's a good article. It covers the technology used, how it's done. And I would like to say, if you meet someone who is explaining to you how they're targeted and they hear voices or they think their neighbors are after them or any number of paranoid comments, don't write it off right away. This is real. Thousands and thousands of people are being experimented on with this technology. It is radio frequency, and sometimes they use microwaves. So it's real.
What issue of Nexus?
It's like 3 issues ago, but it's out there. You can check it out and see which issue it is. Nexus, it's called. It's an Australian magazine run by, I think, a man named Robert Duncan. It's not available. You can get it on the net, though. Yeah, you can get it on the net. Yeah. Yes? Well, I cover that in the book, and it's better to read a longer account of it, but disaster capitalism was popularized by Naomi Klein in her book, The Shock Doctrine, several years ago. She's a Yale graduate. She's a really bright young woman. She did a great job on it because with the downfall of our economy since 2008, they are looking for new ways to make money. And disaster capitalism is a really good one. That isn't the only reason they did Katrina and Sandy, to make money. They also did it as an experimental thing. It was much more than bringing Halliburton in to make money. But it was something that I think was it impressed the leaders of the nations of the world a bit. And Fukushima is the other one, and Haiti is the other one. Those 4. I stress in the book that I try to prove to the best of my ability that these were all intentional. Yeah.
First of all, on behalf, I'd like to publicly thank you for everybody here.
Yeah, thank you.
Spreading this.
He's just thanking me. It's okay.
For everybody, on behalf of everybody. But of course, I saw something recently that said that they were using the waste from coal factories or coal production.
Coal dust.
To manufacture this, is that?
Well, I know what you're referring to. It's put out by someone who will not give his name, called the Harper Report, and he's claiming that coal dust is being used in the dark, particularly the dark trails that you see. And that is a question that is on the table, along with a question of how the delivery system is working. Is it only additives now to JP8 fuel, or are there separate nozzles and the system that are distributing chemtrails as well? This is something that several activists and I are still going after. And I know what I think, but I need to sit down with it. I've been working on this presentation, so I haven't I haven't been able to do that, but I'm following it. Yes, ma'am.
Also on Monday at this university will be giving a free lecture on how to deal with the contamination and the fallout in your food from food issues. So there are posters out there if you're interested, you can see me after.
Very good.
Absolutely right.
Very good.
Who did it and how.
It's a horror. Yes, sir.
Hi, Colin. Just wanted to thank you. It's the first time I've been to a presentation like this. It was excellent. You spoke about ELF, the Project Bluebeam, for those, you were talking about the holograph and stuff.
Right.
You talked about scalar waves and stuff. To me, it seems like this is all based on Nikola Tesla's technology. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I would also, if you want to look at scalar technology, I would read Tom Bearden. Tom Bearden's very good. There have been a lot of false rumors passed about Tom Bearden, but to me, he's the best. Yeah, it's a new technology. I don't know that it's new, but it is hidden technology, and it is used very much in this, and it is Tesla. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi, yes, my name's Kevin. Thanks a lot for speaking here tonight. And I was wondering if you could recommend a website, or is there a website that exists that we can map these chemtrails? We could log in and say, you know, these were cited here on this date, this time.
There are so many. There are so many now. I mean, Bye Bye Blue Sky is putting things up right here in your own town. That's Suzanne's site. And there are many people who are doing fabulous observations. They just don't have the language yet. I mean, we're having to reinvent the wheel here, right? Because it's a secret program. It's a national security program. We're left on our own, so I don't mind that. But we need to, therefore, use describers well when we're logging weather. Like longitude, latitude, where did it happen? What were the patterns you saw in the chemical clouds? How much natural do you think there was? I mean, you know, analysis, that's all. That's the helpful thing. Yeah, thank you. Yes?
Hi, everybody. My name is Cindy, and I don't know about anybody else, but I like getting pissed off. Like, we are, like, as a species, we are, like, so passive-aggressive. I mean, it's like, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for this. It's like there's, like, 3.3 million people here in Toronto. And last year, I feel like crying. It was like, last year we only had, like, 30 people at the march. And this year, you know, like, with all these people here, and if we all brought 10 people, we started going down to the mayor's office, started doing something like they did in California, maybe something could start to happen. Like right now, all this information is great, and as sad as it is, it's going to take a revolution, like in France, where people got up in the streets and they started to march. Because right now, nothing's going to change unless we get up there and start making some demands. I called the Transport Canada, and I said to them, I said, how, do you check all the planes that go out there? It says, well, as long as they have a pilot license and as long as, you know, it looks like they got credentials, we don't check what's underneath the hood. And I say to myself, that's what's spraying above my head in Thornhill, like all this like negligence. So what I'm saying is I really, from the bottom of my heart, I'm begging people here today, for the march that's coming up next week, bring 10 or 20 people and start saying to boys, and now with the new mayor, go up to him and say, what the hell are you going to do about this situation? Because it's only by force and the number of people that things are going to change. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I mean...
Western Hemisphere territories like Guam and Samoa and stuff like that, and Puerto Rico and all and whatnot is kind of basis for.
It's all involved in the space fence, all of it. And that was one of the things with Fukushima, was the Japanese people and the Prime Minister sitting at that time were ready to throw the Americans off of Okinawa. And that's when Fukushima happened. And the Prime Minister resigned a month later. Yeah, that's what happened. Okay, I've been told I can only take 2 more questions. Oh my gosh. Pressure.
Now all the hands go
And I'll
up.
be out there. I'll be signing books, right?
Yes.
And you can still ask me questions then. That'll be okay. All right. Yes? Yeah. Russia involved? Well, yeah, I think it's more, I have pondered that because the Cold War was actually a tacit agreement between Russia and America. Without American money, Russia could never have conducted their part of the Cold War. But this is different. Now Russia and the United States, we were working together, and now, yes, Russia has this technology. Used to be ahead of the United States, it's not anymore. China has this technology. And now it's what Sylvain said that I quoted, they're all vying for this Paris conference, and who's going to have their finger on the magic button is sort of how I look at it.
The Pope.
Huh?
The Pope's going to have his magic finger on it.
The Pope. Yeah, he's going to be there. I think that's interesting. Yes?
Last job.
Yes, my name's Phil. I'm 88 years old. I just want you to get a little bit serious about what's going on. The biggest terrorists that we have to worry about are these guys here.
You got that right.
They're committing war crimes every single day.
Yep.
And we're being complacent. In our lifetime, it's going to take a while. These guys will undergo Nuremberg-like trials. We will get them. But if we sit on our hands, nothing will happen. You got to get brave. You got to stop worrying about what people care about, what they think about the water cooler. Okay? Get uncomfortable now, a little uncomfortable now, so we're not super uncomfortable later. God bless people. We can do this. I believe in you. I hope you believe in me.
Very good.
That's it.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, and as a supplement to what he's saying, don't be daunted by the technical. I am not a plasma physicist. I do not have a degree in physics, but I can research. I can think. I don't have my TV on. I'm busy. This is only one life that we have here to donate and dedicate to future generations who have no idea what's coming. I mean, well, anyway, I'm writing the Space Fence book. I wonder if anybody will buy it. It'll be such overwhelming news. Anyway, I can't take any more questions. He's my boss. Thank you so much. I'll be out there.
Signing books out in the lobby for anybody who's interested in having their book signed. Thank you. Guys, Elana's been on her feet for a couple hours. We're just going to get her to the table to sign her books, which...
All right,
we thought we were doing
her in the line.
Thank you very much.